Hello, my beautiful friends. I recently had the opportunity to interview the luminous Rob Bell. For those of you who have not engaged with his work before, he started off as somebody who really was retelling stories from the biblical tradition, but from a real sense of mythic and mystic perspective. He is very healing for a lot of people who grew up Christian, including myself, but he's so much more than that. He is a creative I have admired for many, many years because he keeps changing and pivoting and following his calling. He has written novels and nonfiction and memoirs, and he has a beautiful podcast, and he is now making these really fun paintings that he shares on Instagram, and he has really followed his own becoming. He no longer wanted to just be in the box of former pastor telling stories from this other tradition. He really wanted to become himself and share in the world. And that has been something that has sustained me in my creative process. So when I got the opportunity to interview this beautiful person about his newest beautiful sci-fi novel, Where'd You Park Your Spaceship, I was so excited. Sitting down with him and getting to just talk about the absurdity of life and how we define ourselves and how we live a meaningful life was maybe one of the most special things I've done this year. We talked about his book and so much more. And honestly, I don't normally do interviews on this little space here, and it will probably come out of left field because we're normally talking astrology or energy or the notes for the month. And I didn't really care because for me, this is just such a beautiful, powerful conversation. And it's really a reflection of the things I think I'm valuing the most in this new year. So I hope you will listen. I think it will give you so much inspiration if you are a creative that is looking to have a different identity in the world and just be yourself in the world. So I hope you really enjoy our conversation. And I can't wait to hear your thoughts on it. Hello, everyone. I am so excited today because we have a very special, creative, free spirited guest here, Rob Bell, the one and only. One title really would not fit you, I think, which is so great. Like, you are a writer, a speaker, a thinker, artist, and so much more. And today we are here to talk about your newest creation, which was just amazing to read. Where'd you park your spaceship? And I'm so excited to explore the whole process of this book. So welcome, welcome, Rob Bell.
It is great to be with you somewhere between Sweden and California.
That's right. We're meeting in the middle somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
How would you introduce yourself these days?
Like I will literally, if somebody asks now, the only way it works for me, because over the years this has been very frustrating for me, like a title or that's always been like I would just make stuff up. Now you would laugh. I might just tell them what I did that day. Like they're literally like, what do you do? And I'd be like, well, I walked the dog this morning, then I took my daughter to school. Then I worked on a book, and then I talked to a woman named Sarah in Sweden. I literally might just give people a list because it's just easier.
I love it.
That's
I
all we
love it
got.
because that's always one of those impossible things to have a conversation about.
And even the attachments and the clinging to particular versions of ourselves, when you can just swap those out at the drop of a hat if you'd like. So it's like a sort of limberness of the soul where you're in on the joke of your own importance. Like you see the absurdity of it. Like I'm the vice president of the assistant regent manager. Oh, please. You know what I mean? But I do have, this is some stuff I did today. It was quite enjoyable.
I love it. More
That's
of a
all I'm left with.
verb.
After all these years, that's all I'm left with. It's just verbs.
I think that's the way to go, though, really. There's nothing like closing down a conversation to just give people titles of what you do. I found that just so often.
Yes, right. And there's the cartoon version when you can see it's so easy to romanticize a particular thing and the person, you could, it's so easy that in love with the idea. My son is a musician, and when he was probably 17, maybe, he played bass for this band, and the singer, I was like, how did it go? And he's like, she doesn't love the work. That's how he's like, she loves the idea of being a star, but she doesn't like hauling amps. She doesn't like sound checks. She doesn't like, and I was so struck that at a young age, he was like, oh, there's like this attachment to a thing that's totally different than actually what you're actually doing, and whether that's something you enjoy.
Yeah, great point. So I read your book, your newest book, Where'd You Park Your Spaceship, in like record time. I did read it before you came here, but I read it so fast because it just sucks you in, you know, the style. It's just, I would sit down and plan to read, I don't know, 20 pages or something, and 50, 60 pages later, I'd still be in there. And I feel like part of the lore of this book is how it came to you. Like, I think it's really important part of it for me reading that book and understanding your relationship to it is very powerful. So can you talk a little bit about how this book kind of
Yeah.
found you in a way?
Yeah, literally somewhere between, in the middle of the night, somewhere between fast asleep and wide awake, whatever that in between sort of lucid state is, this guy asks this guy, where'd you park your spaceship? And I distinctly remember thinking, well, how does this guy feel about this question? Oh, he does not like it. And feeling that like in the bones, like, this is a terrifying question for him. Why is that? And the next morning, the next couple of days, I remember there's like a notepad in the clothes closet, like don't forget bread, that sort of notepad. And I remember writing something like, where'd you park your spaceship? What's the one guy's name? Dill Tud. What's the other guy's name? Heen Grubears. And I was like, where are these names? Because I love names. I love making up names. But well, how did they, wait, spaceships? What happened to Earth? And it was this very surreal, almost like fugue-like state of questions about why is this guy asking this? Where are they? They're on the planet Firtus. How do you spell it? Firdus. It was like both granular, like what's the name of the planet? What's the name of his spaceship? What's the one guy's name? And then also just this feeling of disruption and irritation and terror. Yeah, and I had a job. I had written a number of books, but they were very different. And I had written one novel and a couple plays, so I had done some stories. But honestly, Sarah, the stories that I had written felt like, am I allowed to do this? Almost like, come on, be responsible. You have a job. So within a couple of weeks, I'd like filled pages of the story that just kept coming. And I had like it was a very vulnerable, like tender, almost like a young boy asking, like, is it okay? Can I just give myself to this? Can I just follow this story? And I remember right away being like, oh my God, there's like multiple books. Oh my God, there's like realizing, yeah, it was like the permission giving, the absurdity of it was actually quite helpful. Wait, other planets? Was because it was so absurd, you couldn't, none of the rational, oh yeah, definitely one of your the publishers you've worked with will be excited about. Like, no one's gonna care. No one's gonna be interested in publishing. They're gonna ask for a Rob Bell book. And I'm gonna be like, well, this happens to be a Rob Bell book. I just already can see the absurdity even of the publishing discussions. Like, well, no one probably will ever read it, but wow, is it doing something to you? So it's like started super, super intimate and personal.
Yeah.
You like write it for yourself because it's like doing something to you. And then, yeah, it's very, very surreal.
So what did
Wonderful
that
experience.
get you to discover too about maybe how you had given yourself permission throughout your life and where you had been kind of holding yourself back? Did you find a whole bunch of places where you realized you had rules?
Oh, and the joke is on, the absurdity, the joke is on me, obviously, because I've for like whatever 20 years been traveling around the world giving permission slips, like follow your heart. Literally, this man's you're talking to, as my kids would say, whose man's is this? This man's has literally done lots and lots of workshops about creativity, about your antenna, about getting the editor off your shoulder so you can just, and all the stuff I've ever said like boomeranged back to me. Like I had, it was humbling would be a word for it, but that's too mild of a word for like every single thing you've ever stood on a stage and told somebody is coming back to you and punching you in the face with love, and your love about this very if something is filling you with this kind of wonder and awe and joy, this is literally the thing you've talked about. You've written books about this, and now just it's okay. You can just follow it. Just give it what it's asking for, like, and then just what your normal, what you would call job, just do them later in the day at lunch, like weekend, like just figure it out. Be your own patron, essentially. Like, yeah, it had like a hustle element. Like, you really want to make this, okay? Then figure it out. Like, figure it out. Yeah, it took me like way back to like a very early, young. Yeah, I really want to make. How bad do you want to make this? I really want to make this. Okay, then rearrange your life. Figure it out.
Wow.
Yeah, I went all the way down.
Has it felt really vulnerable sharing this piece of work with the
Well,
world?
what's interesting is that part didn't, because it was like the first thing. Oh, I would like at the end of the day, I'd have dinner with Kristen, and I'd like tell her what one of the characters had done that day. And she'd be like, "Oh my God, you just love talking about these characters." And in the past, the other books, the book comes out, then you do like a month of interviews and promotion, and then I would go on to the next thing I was making. And there was something about the subconscious, about I didn't understand what the story was happening, because my work a lot of my work for whatever 30 years was explaining things, teaching, like parsing, making distinctions, and none of that worked with this. It was like that had to be completely. It doesn't matter that you know how to do that, Rob Bell. This story is like what happens next. That's it. It's the only thing happening here. So I would like weep, like literally general like full body tears at some sections when I was writing them, and not have any idea what it was about. Like, I don't even know what the story's about. I just know it's tapping in to something in me so deep I can't even get to it. So what was so interesting about the creative process was, like talking to you today, I'm learning about it, like what you will want to talk about, and is part of the whole, and people pointing out like, you realize this happens and this connection is this character, like Easter eggs that I didn't even know was in there. So there was something about that was all new and like so like like life-giving, refreshing, vital, that if I did like put it out, like the vulnerability of putting out, then I would get to talk to people about it. So there's something about the integrity of it. Wouldn't even be promotion. It would be like a Tuesday. It would just be so fun. So that's where it even like, and for a lot of creative people, the economics, the promotion, how do I tell people about it, all that kind of stuff, that got transformed. Like, no, this would be so ridiculously enjoyable. I would be smiling, and that even affected it. Like, oh, you could go rethink the entire process as asking to be rethought.
Wow. I love it. The first line of your book is "The Earth didn't make it." Pretty devastating. How did it
Yeah,
feel to spend so much time writing from this other version of the universe through the eyes of Heen Bears while sitting here
right.
on the Earth?
I noticed that it had us, it produced a great affection in me for the world now, and actually had a very activist dimension to it. But like it made me think about like the power of everything that isn't said and how much more powerful it is than the things that are said. Like you think about a relationship, a long-term relationship, and one day there's an argument that keeps coming up about some topic, and one day one of the people partners says to the other, well, if we're going to stay together, we're going to need to get to the root of this. And they've never discussed parting ways. So for each of them, it's terror that one of them said, if we're going to stay together, we're going to need to like really work this through. But if you're the observer watching, you're like, oh no, they're better than ever, because the worst fear has been spoken. They're probably now going to be able to get at the root of whatever this topic that keeps coming up. You know what I mean? Like speaking the unspeakable weirdly is the best thing. And there was something about the fear and the collective terror right now in the world about the future of the earth. I just noticed in me when we just started there. It had like it almost like freed the imagine in my own life, freed my imagination for all sorts of new ways to be more connected to the earth. That's what I found really interesting about that. And I didn't set out to say anything about the earth. It was just working backwards from, why does this guy ask this guy this question? Well, if you back up 300 pages, there's a reason why they're on this other planet. So it wasn't even a point. They're like making any points. This didn't work with this. It had to just be what happened. Just very straightforward.
Yeah. Do you feel like you relate to Heen Bears? Does he feel like it's a part of you, or is he totally his own spirit that came
Yeah,
from
I
you?
don't. This is really fascinating to me. None of the characters remind me of anybody that I know.
Wow.
And there was something about, I'm sure they are obviously all just bits and pieces. A friend of mine started reading the book and then got so angry he put it down because he couldn't figure out which character I was. He's like, I just kept, and that made me laugh really hard. And then later he's like, then I picked it back up and realized you're all of them, which I guess that helped make sense to him. Doesn't make any sense to me. There's something about the characters that none of them have any features of anybody that I can consciously think of. But I also know, I assume that my unconscious obviously shaped them all. Yeah, so I remember the first interview I did about the book, and I kept talking about, I love how Heen is learning that he notices, doesn't seize. And the interviewer just like stopped the interviewer and he was like, I'm sorry, this is so weird. You're talking about these characters like you didn't create them.
Well, that's kind of my question too, is like, I feel like, I don't know if you feel this way about creation, but there's an element of course, that comes from within you, but there's that other element that comes
Yes.
from something that,
Right. Yeah. I'm sure you know about this in your work, where you're like, I'm talking about this like the person you're talking to about it. There is a dissolution of the ego. Like I'm so aware of how this is some other thing that I can literally talk about it like a separate thing. Very
yeah,
strange. And even though like I created it, sure. Yeah, okay, fine. I'm also smiling as I say that because you're just experiencing something you don't even, who knows how any of it works.
it has its own life, and you're kind of
Yeah. It's
walking it
almost
with
like
it.
it's like you're interviewing it about what it wants to be. And
Yeah.
it's got like a life and mind of its own.
Yeah. I think that's one of the truest things about doing any kind of creative thing that doesn't get talked about enough right up front. Like, just be prepared for this thing to take it's going to have a life of its own and it's going to reveal things to you. It's really freeing not to feel like you have to
Yeah.
have control of it the whole way through.
Yeah, I've noticed when I work with people who are working on something and they're stuck, and I'll ask them, well, just ask it. Like, ask it what it wants to be. That for so many people in the modern world, like the conditioning and programming of the free market, the struggle, all the different narratives that are stacked on top of each other is you have to muster this stuff up. It's like that. It's like very loaded, almost like sacred masculine, very like bootstraps, just grit, the grind. How many people? Yeah, the grind. Like these are all just, for many people, like just assumptions. Yeah, you just got to grind it out. Like, wait, hold on. How did this become the norm? The war of art.
Yeah.
Like like these very dualistic, conquering, dominating imagery. Well, then no wonder people are exhausted and blocked and frustrated and wondering why.
Yeah.
In many ways, you're seeing this wonderful resurgence of all sorts of archetypes and understandings of flow, and not an absence of effort, but just an ease within the effort and listening, and sort of the spacious silence out of which things arise that have their own, they have their own propulsion, their own energy, and you're almost like a doula of sorts. I think
Definitely.
you're seeing all of these images sort of race back into the collective because we've been so off kilter for so
Spacious
long.
silence. What a thought.
Right. I mean, you even think about like how many cities you're like, what the, this is almost like somebody just decided to like just when in doubt, just make more buildings and pour more pavement. Like no one sat and really thought through what Los Angeles was going to be. They wouldn't have let this happen. Um,
Yeah.
so you just, so many things are like, the answer, obviously the people making this, the answer was just make more. Nobody paused and went, I don't know, is growth always good? Like let's
Mhm. Yeah.
so yeah, there's like a, when you're jammed up or frustrated or blocked, stop. Whatever you do, stop. Like just slow down, listen.
Yeah. Speaking of spacious silence and growth and noise and the world that we live in today, technology is a really interesting part of this book and this world because you've kind of done some really interesting things with it. On the one hand, technology doesn't play the same role at all in people's lives. They don't have smartphones and computers. At the same time, it's a highly technological universe. And can you talk a little bit about the role of technology and,
Yeah.
how that plays out in this version of the universe?
Well, right away, I noticed how interesting it was to me that there were no cars and no phones. So I took the two machines that sort of dominate for many people the modern world. It was like, oh, let's just remove those, just aren't here. I don't know whether that was intentional or I just noticed partway through, oh, there's no. So that was interesting to me. And then the circles are intentional so that you can walk.
Mm.
Um, and all the things that happen when you walk. And there's no streets, there's just paths. Even when he's reading about that place called the Angels on Earth, and he's like, I guess, I don't know, a street, it must be like a path. He's even like trying to understand what that even is. So that was super interesting to me, that there something about the future was both way farther technology than anything we have now, and also a connection to the earth that like went both directions, rather than what we are is like bits of that. And that was super interesting to me. So you're outdoors, like his in Heen's youth, they're like outdoors and there's like a lake and they live in these holes in the ground. and it's super like earthy and bred and plants and gardens and compost. But then there's all, oh, like when his dad is explaining, yeah, we used to have cameras with us all the time and we used to share all that. And he's like, wait, what? That sounds, what? It's like, he's just, you did, that's not, why?
Yeah, I loved that section of the book when he was describing basically Instagram culture, and it just makes
Yes.
no sense because it
Yeah,
doesn't
yeah.
make sense even now if you really look
Right.
at it. It's exhausting. Like, what are we doing to ourselves?
And he's like, you would comment on photos that somebody shared that, from somebody they don't know, and then you would make a comment. Like, it's just all to him. It's like, well, let's just go outside and I don't know, let's go swimming. Let's go take a hike.
Yeah. Yeah, it gave the book this sense of presence with all the characters because nobody was off somewhere else. They were where they were with the characters they were with the information they had at hand. And in a weird way, it's almost like literature that you read from previous eras in that sense.
Yeah,
had,
yeah. And that made me, I was super interested in a future. There was like some sort of like a Zen elegance to it where, yes, they apparently had all of these technological capacities, but didn't have like that desperate, clingy need to utilize all of them. Remember when there was a, like Jawbone was this company that made like an earpiece for your cell phone that business people would wear. And I remember like picking my boys up from school, it was probably 10 years ago. And no, 15 years ago. And there was a dad who had one of those like pieces. And I remember just thinking, that's not gonna, I know that's not gonna stick. That will be a fad because it just had a cyborg dimension to it. And I know that business guy. I'm sure he's very successful and he's getting a lot done with his being able to talk on the phone like he's talking, but that's just ain't right. And then they said, I remember the future was going to be wearables, like a shirt that would tell you if you, I don't know, did a workout, it would tell you all kinds of things. I remember, I think, I remember distinctly thinking humans will reject that. There's some line at which we will feel like we're too wired. The machine
yeah.
is, so I just think it's super interesting how they're, was it Google that made the eyeglasses that had like a thing? A number of those, it's like humanity voted like, nope.
True. Yeah.
So your question is really interesting because we actually have this. We have a number of technologies with companies with billions of dollars to sell them and give them to us, and we're like, yeah, no, I'll pass on that. I'm good. We're good.
Yeah, I think in a lot of ways I've been noticing this last couple of years, a lot of us are just reaching our capacity when it comes to this culture of growth and sharing and constant numbers. I know I relate to you a lot on your creative journey and needing to create what you want to create, regardless of how popular that will be or how many people are going to see it or how fantastical it's going to be, and kind of reclaiming the kind of earthy, organic process of creating something and then sharing it in real time. And I think your process kind of mirrors that as well, that kind of point at which we're questioning how we're doing all of this and why we're doing all of this. And
right, because the numbers, the mind has to shift to a conceptual awareness. So the person who has however many followers, and I got 10,000 more followers, that's just having different furniture in your mind arranged a particular way. Well, that 10,000 extra 10,000 followers, let's say, have you met them? Does that, what? That's not like a thing. And so it leaves people measuring whatever their success, their influence, their reach, their something, validity, worth, by a thing that isn't a thing. But like, you and I are having we're on different sides of the world, but we're having an actual conversation. Like, you're not just like a little handle on an Instagram comments. Even this, which is very limited and is not really flesh and blood, still is an actual humans interacting and engaging and connecting. And you're right, that like there's this farmers market on Thursday down the hill from our house, and there'll be people from town selling different, there'll be food around the outside, and then the inside there's like a courtyard. There'll be people selling like paintings and wind chimes and pottery, and it's like a human exchange. This person made this thing, it has this value. I bought this bowl from this woman who's like sells her ceramics, and I think we use it every single day. And yeah, what else is there? It's like the best.
Yeah, I think a
So
lot of us are coming back to that, just
yeah,
longing for these smaller moments and these deeper connections. So your book
yes,
is coming at a good point, I think, in that collective experience of our reevaluation of technology and
yeah,
how
yeah, yeah,
it kind of shaped our sense of ourselves and our validity, like you were saying, our validity, our worth, our ability to be here in the world and live a life. One of
yeah, because
your
um,
characters has a teacher, Mr. Pong, who at one point says the unknown always runs the show. And
mm,
this book, I feel like there's this really interesting philosophical undertone throughout the whole book. It's kind of a question, and maybe, you're still asking this question too, but as we follow the main character, Heen Gruber's here, I feel like there's an element of this character's experience that's the world is chaos and meaningless and all these things happen and we don't know why, but also then this sense that there's this meaningful path that's always trying to communicate with you. And then possibly even this book is suggesting there's a third way. I was just wondering if you wanted to talk a little bit about.
oh, what's the third way? Oh, do tell.
I don't know. I mean, that's, I'm, I think that there's a little bit of both of those in any life.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
maybe that's the third way, but
yeah, and he, even when that begins to, like the foundation begins to crack for him, and he's like, it's not random. Like I do my job, the whole thing, and then he's like, wait, is it like people are just making decisions about what they think is important or not? It's all just, yeah, his own. It's he's never thought about it. Like the world is just set up the way the world is, and then he has these horrific experiences in which he realizes decades later he's quite numb. Yeah, 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 and then he begins to. I just it took me a while to realize he keeps talking about how different Furtis is, but as the reader, he has also told us he's been to 138 planets. We don't ever actually know, is Furtis different? Because he has almost like
yeah.
he's beginning to wake up and feel, but we don't. Were all the bakeries filled with human beings who are fascinating? He's just now like, wait, Borns and Ziga May are actually. And then I love how he starts jumping in to like their lives, and then he's like, I don't take part in these kinds of conversations. These are the exact kind of conversations I like stay out of. It's like he's getting sucked in, and he keeps blaming it on what is it about this place? But are we sure? Or maybe is it exterior or is it interior? He's just in enough pain, or he's played out his numbness that he's like actually ready to feel. I just think that's all super, super interesting. And then Nunez comes along and is like, you don't see it. God, you miss so much. You really
Yeah.
she just comes to be like, you think you're good at what you do. You like are missing the whole thing.
Yeah. That realization about the fact when he realizes that all the things he's noticing are completely random and that they're going into this official system. And it's like, oh my gosh, is this really
Right.
how this works?
Wait, I just make a
Um,
choice, and then someone makes a choice, and someone makes a choice about my choice. So he's starting to like feel the malleable nature of this thing that presented itself as an absolute. Yeah, give us the data, then we make the right things. He's always just trusted. I guess that's how it works. And then
mm,
suddenly this sort of like, wait, I can like file a report about the owner of a bakery, and then all of a sudden they're dead. What? Um,
yeah.
mm-hmm,
It
mm-hmm.
kind of follows your own progression through all the rules that you had around what you were allowed to write and
My
spend your
own,
time.
right.
Uh,
And then because I do, yeah. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh yeah, I remember this early on when his friend Nord writes a play. I was like, what should the play be called? Oh my God, because I had written a play called What's a Nuka that I'd published. What if Nord wrote a play called What's a Nuka? You could like, the book references a play, but you could actually go get that play if you wanted. And I remember just being like, God, all the cool kids are rolling their eyes right now. Like, dude, that's so on the nose, Rob Bell. And I was like, and that's why we're gonna do it.
Yeah, I can do whatever I want. This is my world.
Yes, yes. Creation is malleable. If you get, that's the beauty of making a world, is you get to make all sorts of rules.
Yeah, you could just throw things. What if I just try this? Absolutely.
Right. I remember somebody asked me they had a great like technical question about, okay, so how does it work with the chairs and the way the governance? They had like a technical governance question about how these galaxies function.
Oh,
And I
wow.
remember right through my mind, immediately I was like, I think I'm just going to say to the person, that I just made this all up, right? Like, that this, but then right following that was this lovely little voice that was like, oh no, double down. So I just on the spot made up like a technical explanation for how it worked in those galaxies. And the person was like, oh yeah, good, that makes sense.
Wow, good job that you just were able to do
like,
that on the spot.
Like, oh good, that answers my question. Yeah. Now I feel better.
Wow, I'm impressed. I mean, apparently somewhere deep down you have been thinking about how this whole thing works.
It's like, I was just thinking now, like if somebody was like, so do lightsabers, do you have to plug in a lightsaber from Star Wars at night so that it can charge? And someone's like, actually they have a battery pack and you can swap them out. Oh, okay, got it.
Perfect. Now I don't have to worry about that. Now I don't have to worry about how they go to sleep at night and if their weaponry is prepared.
Right.
I've always been fascinated by culture and the way that ideal citizens are shaped.
Yeah.
Something like the French Revolution, there was one ideal citizen that was just replaced by the next ideal citizen, and so on and so forth. And I think, this world, there is an ideal citizen that's kind of just kind, lives in their community, doesn't cause too much fuss. And I was just wondering what your thoughts are on conformity, and then also finding a way to be ourselves in the world. Yeah, how do we do that?
Oh, what a great question, because as the reveal with Dill Tud is that he's doing this thing, and he's the last person you think has deep reservoirs of resentment, and he's doing this thing that really genuinely at a very material level helps people, but it turns out that he's way outside the boundaries, and he's assuming at any point he's going to have serious. So he started like his own little resistance movement. A friend of mine, when he got to the end, he was like, the thing about Dill Tud is the thing that he's doing is the most elemental, basic thing. Like how could somebody ever have a problem with that? And yet in this kind of utopian thing, a whole thing has been created to actually need to get its hands on that. But yeah, there's this non-conformity is required at some level. Like the insane thing would be to conform, and yet he's like, yeah, it'll probably be a cost. Or like when Heen says to me, like, yeah, we could get killed. She's like, yeah, okay, yeah, our non-conformity, yeah, and yeah, what else would we do? It's all very matter of fact, which I thought was super compelling. How they don't like dramatize it, or it's just a very straightforward. Yeah, this is what we'll do next, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, there is a point, I think, in life at which each of us reaches at different points where it doesn't even matter, the hardship or the possible outcomes, because there has to be this like commitment to whatever's feeling true. And there's just no way to go back once you see and know something about yourself.
This friend of mine, he and his wife are 80. He was telling me a couple of weeks ago that they have what they say in certain moments is, this I know. And they just have a long-standing trust with each other. Like, coming from a place of like silence and stillness and just listening without expectations or attachments. He's like, at times you simply know. So you just move in that. This I know. And
That's
it's not
beautiful.
like an unquestioned, it's not like a free pass, but it is like a sort of, if you do move slow enough and you do pay attention with enough rigor and centeredness, then you will know things.
Yeah,
It's like,
that is
no,
true.
and you'll move.
What is it about bread? Bread is
I
a thread
know,
in this book. Bread is a thread. Throughout the
right?
story, it's just there. Can you talk about bread?
Oh, what
How did
it
it become the thing?
something something to do with there's an elegance to the simplicity of bread. It's like really that actually makes life is the wondrous thing that it is. Like there's a bakery down the hill. They do an organic sourdough. There's a giant oak tree, and they have like a little stucco hut under this oak tree. Wednesday through Sunday mornings, they set out these loaves on this little cart. There's like a little window you can walk up to it and pay and get this organic sourdough. And I can come home, and it's such a simple, around the world for generations bread, and it's like the first time is every time. And I'm just struck with, how would I say it? News, but it's not the news. It's an outrage entertainment algorithm machine built on scandal and absurdity and shock, um, as opposed to, yeah, but there's bread. And your family can have a go get some good bread, maybe a coffee. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, hold on. Yes, of course, there's things happening in the world that are tragic, and of course, yes, of course, but there's bread. Um, now there's something about that, and something about the bakery and the person who got up while we were still sleeping to make sure that something about the people who make the world run,
Mm.
who don't get a lot of it. Like somebody got up and made that bread. That yeah, yeah. There's something about the you know somebody somewhere in time and space got up and did that so that you could have that. And
Mm.
wait, that's actually a really really important thing they did there.
Yeah.
It's sort of like, yeah, bread.
It kind of comes full circle.
Yeah. I'm always fascinated with the familiar, unfamiliar.
Yeah.
That which is right in front of us, that's so close and obvious and like given that it strangely becomes unfamiliar.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Yeah. I mean, bread has always been, I think, a very symbolic symbol.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a symbolic symbol of life, of,
yeah,
it takes you full circle, I know, in your journey, in all your different iterations in a way
right.
too.
And there's
Um,
something about, you're right, something about bread historically that has often been spiritually like a placeholder for provision,
mm,
for sustenance, for people gathering around the table to receive from the earth, and the bounty, the resolute bounty of the earth, that it just keeps making the stuff we need to keep living. Like, there's an abundance to the earth that, I mean, you think about our economic system is built around scarcity. Advertising is scarcity. Academics was scarcity. Only certain people will get the best grades and get into the best schools. Employment, the best jobs, only the best people will get. Like, scarcity is baked into this system, and it is not actually in alignment with creation, which is like, what's a birch tree make 250 million seeds in order to produce maybe one or two trees? creation just what we would say is not very productive. It's wasteful.
Mm.
It's almost like a winking to us the whole time. Your whole scarcity thing, I know it creates a great, wonderful thing for the ego, unless, of course, you're on the underside of that scarcity and system, and then it's almost like the great wink. Like the
Mm.
whole thing actually works differently than you think it works.
Yeah, definitely. It kind of goes back to that theme of noticing as well. Scarcity can feel very present when we're not able to notice. And part of opening ourselves up to that
Right,
creative abundance is practicing noticing.
right. So you think about like in the US, anytime there's a movement like, what about universal health care? What about paying college being like high school and being paid for? And there's always like, well, how are we going to pay for that? And yet there's a $700 billion defense spending bill. Yeah, we got to keep ourselves safe. Like, wait, like, wait, there is money. There is. There is enough.
Yeah, it exists. It's there. Oh man. In so many ways, I think your journey with this book and the book itself, just the way it's written, is to me just this beautiful, I think, love letter to the creative process. That's when I was reading it, it felt like that to me. I loved that you just, I don't know, there's just something about the freedom of the way you wrote it, the style of it. You let this unique voice just free. And that was a really beautiful thing, an enjoyable thing to read. You don't always get a chance to read a book like that. So what advice do you have for somebody who wants to let something like that flow out of them and into the world?
To listen very carefully for who's on your shoulder and then ask them to leave. And it might be somebody you really love. It might be somebody who's really helped you. It might be a mentor, it might be a friend. I have this friend, Elizabeth Gilbert, who inspires lots of people, but I often joke with her, like, do you know how many people we've had to take you off their shoulder? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you do so this wonderful gift. And part of the creative process for many people is to accept the gift of somebody. Like, think about how wonderfully powerful and evocative and inspiring and just uplifting she is, but she doesn't want you going to Bali and like retracing her steps and Eat, Pray, Love. You know what I mean? Like, she's like, no, please don't. Please don't.
Yeah.
Find your own magic. That's my point.
Yeah.
So even people who have just meant so much to us can easily jam up our antenna. They're on our shoulder. I remember working with a woman who, she was like, well, my book needs to be 70,000 words. And I was like, well, how long is your book? And she's like, well, an editor told her that her book needs to be 70,000 words. I was like, but how long is your book? She said it needs to be 70. I was like, no, but how long is your book? So this well-meaning publishing veteran editor, actually the advice and wisdom she was given was working against her. And that will always require generally a wobbly sort of I've just seen this again and again. I do these events here in Ojai where we sit under these oak trees for 2 days and people bring their question about what they're creating. And it's always a trusting that there's something that's asking for expression that will be how they do it. It will often involve, I would say, duct tape. It will often involve bits and pieces of ways that they've seen other people do it, but duct tape together in how they do it. And they oftentimes, the person's looking around for like a sort of a comp, like a comparison, but there isn't one. That's so there's like it just invites you to trust all the more. Or the person tried it and in their eyes it didn't work, it failed, etc. So like not doing that again. So then we have to go back to the very nature of the creative process, which is, and how creation works. A river winds its way down a mountain. Yeah, it might be the 7th business idea that works. Like, did you think that the first shot you threw up would go in the hoop? Like, what? That's not how it works for me. How it works for me are like, if you want a 10-song record, you probably have to write 50 songs. Like,
Yeah.
it's okay. It's
Yeah.
okay. So then we just move to conditioning and programming around success, failure, waste, productivity. So all of these then are just asking to be, you have to think about it in new ways. It's how we had to make lots of things to get to a thing where we're like, oh, this one. You would not, oh my God, you would believe the number of people who their question is, I'm afraid of this memoir that when the people in my life read my memoir and see themselves in it, it's going to get really ugly. And every person who's ever asked that hasn't begun writing the memoir.
Yeah.
So they aren't starting writing this memoir because of fear of how people in their life are going to respond, which these people probably aren't even going to read it, number one. But you just see they're like just 4 or 5 steps ahead. Tell you what, write it. Just write it. We can always take those parts out.
Yeah.
So there's all these different ways that we get all jammed up. So it's almost, you got to sit and figure out, listen for which one of them's in play. And then once you see it, and then the funny thing is once we see it, it's obvious. But until we see it, it's just an ambiguous hairball. So yeah.
So dive in. You gotta just
there's
go.
generally a simplicity after the complexity. And once you see it, you're like, how come I didn't just see that from the beginning? Because you had to, it's just how it works.
Yeah, I think being in the creative process too, beginning can help you see those things as well. It's like sitting at the starting line, it makes it very difficult to fully conceptualize all the things that are in your way. But once you're in there, things reveal themselves.
Absolutely.
You'll find out.
Yeah. And every time I meet somebody who says, I'm like you, I just have tons of ideas, 9 times out of 10, the person's then going to say, and I'm all jammed up and I just can't seem to finish any. So I just begin asking them questions because generally it's because they're in love with fantasy. In your mind, the idea is unbordered, it's boundless, it's infinite, it is spectacular. But to actually bring something into space and time, into flesh and blood, into the world, you're going to have to make peace with what it actually is, and that death of all the possibilities so that it can actually be something. That death, it's like you have to get good at that death.
Oh yeah.
And otherwise the person stays in love with fantasy. So they're telling you about the book they're going to write. They're giving lots of energy telling you about the thing they're going to do, so they don't have to actually do it, because then you have to find out what it really is, and that's can be devastating. So it's like, just hit that wall as fast and hard as possible so you can get over it, so you can just get on with it.
Yeah, that's it. That's so it. I agree. All right, so I have a couple just these are quick lightning questions to close out our chat today about Where'd You Park Your Spaceship. Of all the characters in this book, who would you want to be stuck on an abandoned planet with?
I actually I find Nunez and Peeble to be riveting. Obviously, I can see now that they're very strong, feisty women, I live with strong, feisty women. So, but I find those women just so strong and funny, and clever. I guess I find all the characters strong and funny and clever and all that. Obviously, Lines is just a good time. That kid just makes me laugh. Yeah, I love all of them. They're
Hard choice, impossible choice, but I love those answers.
Yeah.
Also, stealing a line from your book, what's your favorite bread?
There, I had it this morning. This other bakery down the street makes they bake a salt bagel every morning. That's like, can't even I don't even know what the dough, I don't even want to know because it's so perfect. So I went down there yesterday and got two of them. They're $3. And I had one this morning, and I can't even, that bakery, a guy just told me that the owners gave the majority ownership to the employees, to the kitchen staff.
Wow. All right.
And there's that place, oh my word. So there's a salt bagel right now that I think is just about the best thing a person could eat.
Wow, I love it. All right. Well, this has been so amazing to spend this time with you, hear about your creative process, hear about the relationship you have with this creative work. It's been so inspiring. What do you want to share with people about where they can find your work? Anything else going on? Anything you want to tell this community about?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, so yeah, the book is out, and there's an audio book if you want me to read it to you. And I do a Robcast, so I do episodes where I talk about things and tell stories. And then I do these paintings, and so I'm generally always doing an art show on Instagram because it makes me laugh. I just painted a spaceship on the bottom of a surfboard. I think I'll do that art show today.
Awesome.
And oh yeah, and then if people want to come, you can come to Ojai here in California and sit under these. About 20 of us, about 20 people each month come here from around the world and spend 2 days with me on their creative process. And we just go one person after another sits across from me, and things happen. So if you want to be a circle of people making a new world, just all that info is at my site.
Sounds amazing. I wish I could be there. So thank you so much for your time today. This has been such an amazing conversation. Love to have you back.
Great. I'm so glad we talked.
Yes, thank you so much.